Welcome, everybody. Hi, I am Coach Les, and welcome to the AGC Talks event. AGC Talks is like a TED Talk. In a short time, we will have a timed 15-minute talk that is motivational, educational, inspirational, followed by questions and answer time with our speaker. And I am Coach Les, and as you can see, I'm a business coach, and I am an integrity coach. And I work around the Twin Cities and around the United States. And I actually have my first client that is located in India, and absolutely love being able to use this online platform to be able to coach people all around the world. And with that, as I said before, the 15-minute talk that will be coming up in a moment is motivational, educational, inspirational. AGC is a global educational organization, and this is our networking organization developed by our founder and CEO, Travis Sims. Before we get to that, please put your comments in the comments what city, state, country you're watching from. And if you're live, put hashtag live. If you're watching it in replay, do us a favor and put hashtag replay. You are likely watching from one of these places. And that would be Facebook groups, AGC member exclusive group, where members can ask for a referral, share a testimonial, or share a link to their business. If you're not yet a member, we invite you to our AGC public group, which has now over 2,000 people networking daily with our guided daily networking activities. As you can see, AGC Talks airs live on social media, then it's featured on YouTube, Vimeo, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Search Accelerated Global Connections, and please do us a favor and hit subscribe. Check out the AGC Experience podcast, which is hosted by our founder, Travis Sims, everywhere that you listen to podcasts. Now it's time to share about our sponsor. As you can imagine, everything takes sponsors, and Mailbox Power. It's about mailboxes, not inboxes. Building better relationships has never been easier. Using our platform, you can easily send a card and personalized gift to anyone with a single tap or click, or fully automated. Stop the digital overload and do something that will mean so much more. Mailbox Power is the easiest way to wow people and the way for you to really get their attention, develop stronger relationships, increase revenue, and improve your retention. You know, you've reached an entirely new level when you inspire customer referrals, and you don't have to constantly ask for them. For more information, please contact Bo Young at 320-249-1576. And again, that number is 320-249-1576, or go to betterappreciation.com. If you would like to be a sponsor and you'd like to get your brand in front of the thousands of people that view AGC Talks, please send us an email for more information to support@joinagc.com. You can become an AGC member for only $1 per day. Just visit joinagc.com. I'd like to take a moment to thank our AGC regional partners across the country, and also to thank you to our local AGC leaders that support this event broadcast, and when we're in live, they are there to support and host the event live. Now, We have a 3-year anniversary coming up, AGC's 3-year anniversary, Wednesday, April 6th. So please go to the website, joinagc.com, and register for this event. I promise you, it will be momentous with amazing keynote speakers. And now I'd like to take a moment to introduce this gentleman before I bring him up on the microphone. LeBrent Speed, the power of empathy. How, this is what we're going to be talking about tonight, how discussion of certain historical facts surrounding Black history can not only have a profound impact on our knowledge, but it helps us increase our emotional intelligence and empathy. Today, the learning objectives are going to be to give context to African American history, increase knowledge of significant historical facts, and increase empathy and emotional intelligence. LeBrent is dedicated and results-driven sales and leadership professional with over 25 plus years of experience combining operational management, solution sales, business development, and marketing. He is currently the managing director of the Minnesota Northern Wisconsin region for BNI, the largest networking organization in the world. And this has given him incredible insight on managing a large team through a variety of changes. He is also the founder and president of Transform Men International, a Christian-based nonprofit that focuses on strengthening and uniting men so that they can be better husbands, fathers, and citizens. Along with his nonprofit work, LeBrent is a sales and business coach who helps business and sales professionals who have encountered major setbacks and challenges to create a dynamic life system that allows them to lower stress, increase profitability, and transform their lives. And to let you in on a little secret, he is in the process of opening an event center in Edina, Minnesota. Stay tuned and follow LeBrent Speed to learn all about that. And with that, I'd like to take a moment to take myself off screen here and introduce you to LeBrent Speed. LeBrent, it's great to see you. I'm going to hand the mic right over to you, sir.
Well, first of all, thank you, Coach Les, who's had a profound impact on me. And also thank you, Travis, for this opportunity to share today. I will start with saying the genesis of our this talk today, actually stemmed from a conversation between myself and Coach Les. It might be important to add a caveat that race for conversations isn't something I truly enjoy. Most people have opinions about race and culture, but very few people have the necessary information to fuel their opinion, which makes discourse rather stressful. So you may be wondering, how can racial conversations aid my empathy? Hopefully afterwards it would all kind of come together and make more sense. The challenge, I believe, right now is that we're all fed a steady diet of fear, which triggers our fight or flight mechanism in our systems. Now, you may be asking, how are we fed this steady diet of fear? Well, what I found is that no matter what type of news information you digest, you will find most of it is force-spooning you the type of fear you're comfortable with. I like to call this a smorgasbord of fear. So you're going to get fear one way or the other. It just depends on what type of fear you want. So the question that we ask is, why do they feed us this steady diet of fear? It's because it actually motivates you to act. Fear is a great motivator. It will cause you to move quickly and to spend money, which causes them to make money. So we have to be careful and guard our minds against those who will try to aid to spoon us fear so they can move us to act and spend money. In this conversation, myself and Coach Les were having, we stumbled on a conversation on race relations and racial issues in this country. And one of the things he said was, listen, LeBrent, there's been slavery for all throughout the millennium and all throughout most cultures. So why are racial issues still reverberate in our country today? And that's actually a really good question. I believe the particular reasons why American slavery was one of the most heinous slaveries known to mankind. And I think when we are informed of that information, we can understand better why those tentacles still affect us till today. The number one reason I would suggest to you that this slavery was so impactful is that it was the longevity of over 250 years. Now, some of you may say, LeBrent, hey, there's been some other slaveries that went on just as long or longer. And I would tell you, yes, that's possibly true. But in those other systems, there were mechanisms in which the enslaved were able to find freedom. Now, yes, some African Americans were able to find freedom, but because of some other impetus, they were never able to become full citizens. So the slavery here in America caused the African American to be in a perpetual slavery, not just for them, but their children's children. To give you some context and maybe to gain some greater empathy to understand how generational or discrimination works and how powerful it is, we can look to Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning. For those who are familiar, Viktor Frankl wrote the book about his experience in a concentration camp. And in his book, he describes the scene of what happened before he went to the concentration camp. There was a Jewish man who had a bunch of letters of references and degrees and awards, and he believed that these things would absolve him from going through what the other Jewish people were going through. He hands all these awards and certificates and references to an SS soldier, and the SS soldier looks him in the face and says, "Is this all you have?" The man proudly declares, "Yes, it is. That's all I have." Then he took it and promptly threw it all in the trash, and he said, "Then you have nothing left." It is afterwards. Viktor Frankl describes the facial expressions and the mindset of the man. It was almost as if someone had ripped his soul out of his body. Racial discrimination has a powerful effect if left unchecked because it can rob a person of their humanness. It can rob them of their personhood. And if you can rob a person of their personhood, you can rob them of their very self. The second thing I think is important when we talk about American slavery here that made it powerful was that the slavery was built on dehumanization. American slaves were considered chattel or just animals. And that was codified in 1857 in the Dred Scott ruling, in which the Supreme Court in the 7-2 decision decided that African Americans had no right as full citizens of this country. So they can rob the rights of your humanhood, and the ruling reverberates to our history to today. I'm grateful that not long afterwards, it was the beginning of the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation, and because there were brave Americans who were able to fight against and suggest to others, we will no longer live in a country that tolerates this type of inhumanity. So I am grateful for a country that has done this. I'm also grateful that written in the annals of our history in this country, there are words about rights, freedoms, and the pursuit of happiness. And there are just men and women who could not idly stand by and watch this stuff happen. And number three, I would say, had a very powerful effect because slavery here was based on skin color. Now, people say stuff like, "I don't see skin color," and it's invisible to me. But that goes against our history because hundreds and hundreds of years, people have seen my skin color and would assume my servanthood are now criminality. This is why Dr. Martin Luther King had a dream that people like me wouldn't be judged based on our skin color, but we judged based on the context of the character. So when we talk about the word whiteness in this country, it's important to note that there was no such thing before the 1600s. This was actually an American term. Europeans never considered themselves white. This was something that was made specifically for here so that we can always distinguish between those who are free and those who are enslaved. So it caused there to be this eternal divide between whites and blacks because it made them seem as if just because I'm white, I'm better. Previously, in other parts of the world, there was no distinguishing marks of color. It was just other tribes and cultures. Slavery was predicated on who was stronger, who was weaker. but it was never just placed on skin color because everyone typically in these situations were viewed the same, or they were the same ethnic background. Fourthly, I would say that may have maybe the most impactful trait of the American slavery was the stripping of education. It was codified, written in law, that Africans could not read or write. This is significant because if you can rob a person the ability to learn, you actually steal from them their imagination. And it will cause them to believe that their current situation is all they can ever attain in their lives. This was especially unique because if we look at the culture of the Medes and Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, they always wanted their slaves to be educated so they can help build their nation and strengthen their empire. This was the first time on a large scale that a society said, no, we don't want to educate our workforce. And that lingering effect of robbing the Africans and the African Americans of their education still seen today. Michelle Alexander, in her book, The New Jim Crow, talks about how America moved from slavery to the criminalization of the African American. It started in the South, but this concept of criminalization of the African American migrated throughout the North. And so we found here that many Americans said, if we cannot enslave you, then we will criminalize you. So there were tools of systematic oppression as well. Some may not know this, but Minnesota has the highest disparity between Black and white homeownership in the country. About 70% of white Minnesotans own a home versus only 25% of African Americans. This is because with Jim Crow, there were other things called racial covenants from the 1920s to the 1970s, was actually written into the deeds of our homes that we own, that African Americans, Jews, some other people could not own home. And so therefore it caused this effect to herd African Americans into certain communities. If you want some more additional information, there's actually a really good documentary written called the Jim Crow of the North that you can actually go watch on YouTube. And this stuff actually started going to GI bills and FHA loans. So what happened is that African Americans could not get into the home ownership bubble. Now, this has a chilling effect of home ownership has a chilling effect on a community because home ownership is the lifeblood of the American life. Homeowners are allowed to borrow money. They are able to do things in order to grow their business. And so when you're blocked out of that opportunity to own homes, this really changes everything. So some of you might be asking, I didn't really sign up for a history lesson today. And so why did this dude sign me up for a history lesson? I would suggest to you that if we understand the history, that it really can increase our empathy. I would encourage you that if we're mindful of this information, that when we hear stuff as gang violence or carjacking in Minneapolis, we don't automatically castigate or criminalize these people and not understand the history that got here. Let us be clear. I don't want to ever take on the idea, I want you to think of that I'm condoning violence, that I don't speak against those who do violence in the community. I do that regularly since I was a young child. I believe that we cannot denigrate our own community. But I think understanding history allows us to understand why people do the things they do. If you don't have an opportunity to get significance in other ways, you will get significance in any way you can. As I said previously, if you strip a person of their dignity, then you strip them of their personhood. Once they feel that their personhood is gone, there's nothing left to feel significant. Some will say, yes, LeBrent, racial discrimination is so bad, there's no way getting out. I'm not sure about that, but I will tell you that Dr. Robert Livingston of Harvard University has done some really powerful research on racial programming and its effect on our behavior. There are others you that would say, listen, LeBrent, there is no racial discrimination anymore. That's a figment of our imagination. And it's all pointing towards white Americans now. And I don't really argue with people in regards to that because I don't know if the research bears that quite out. And so some of you who say that would say, well, listen, LeBrent, you still have an opportunity to do whatever you want to do. I would also may have to agree with you. Although racial discrimination does have a chilling effect on our society and our culture, what it doesn't do, what it's actually incapable of doing is actually hindering the individual, because excellence will always outshine situations in which we're looking to be locked in. It does not, although I said have the ability, it does not necessarily rob you of your dignity. There's a story of Frederick Douglass, the great emancipator and writer. and speaker who was actually sent to a baggage cart of a train because he was African American. And some people were really disgusted because he was a man of prominence. And they said, Mr. Douglass, we are so sorry that this was allowed. These people robbed you of your dignity. And he says, no one can rob me of something that's inherently mine. I do believe that we have inherent dignity. And if we hold on to our inherent dignity, we can do this. Now, the question becomes, how does this information fuel my empathy? You might say, I'm a business owner, LeBrent. How does this help me be a better business owner? Well, John Maxwell, in his book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, gave one of his laws was number 5, the law of addition. And he said the job of a leader is to actually strengthen and make the lives of the follower better. When you're empathic, you're able to make the lives of everyone around you better. You're able to look at your people who work with you and work for you and make their lives better. That's the true job of a leader, of a business owner. If you're a salesperson, if you're empathic and you're listening to your customer, they don't care about what you're selling. They care about how what you're selling affects them. If you're listening, you care. You're able to sell to different groups of people, different cultures, different backgrounds. You're not locked into a particular culture or set. This makes you a powerful salesperson. If you are married and if you're a guy, you might be listening to this because there have been times maybe your wife or your partner has shared with you that you weren't listening. I can't say that I have never been in that situation, but it's something really demoralizing when someone that you love and care for is not listening to you. When we listen to others with the intent of learning and caring, it will change how we deal with our partners. Even our children, if any of you have children, I have 4 children, my two youngest ones are 16 and 12. Culturally, things are a lot different than it once was. There was a time when I was a kid, we were seen and not heard. That is no longer. And so they have different things that we don't have now. But when I learned to empathize and listen, despite if I don't agree, empathy doesn't mean you have to agree with people. Empathy doesn't mean you have to always see eye to eye. Empathy just says I care. And when you care, it really can make a real powerful effect on everyone around you. As I close out today, I want to encourage you that if you take information you hear and you understand it from a perspective, if you take it from a perspective of learning, empathy will affect everything around you, from your business to your family to your community. And it will literally make the business that you work in, the place that you live, a better place. And frankly, with all that's going on in the world today, we need a little more empathy to make our world a little sweeter. Thank you for this opportunity today, and thank you, Coach Les, for bringing me on.
Awesome, LeBrent. Thank you. Really appreciate it, and would like to now see if we can, take a look here, and we'll go to this this method here and answer a few questions. And hopefully, there's just been a lot of scrolling going on over here. I don't know if you're able to see the comments, LeBrent, but there's
no, I can't see any comments.
But it's been going, so I'll share some of them and bring them up. First off, let's take a look and see who is where people are. We've got welcome to Sean Wade, who's live in Hastings, Minnesota. We've got Travis Sims, who's live in Cottage Grove. Hello, Travis.
Hello, Travis.
We have a Facebook user in Maple Grove, Minnesota. We have a very good friend of mine, Tim Ray, who's live from LinkedIn, and he's in Inver Heights, LeBrent. We have here Teresa Schmidtman, who you might know.
Yes, I know Teresa. Yes, Teresa.
And let's see here. We've got, don't forget, we've got Travis is saying, don't forget, attend our 3-year anniversary. Tia Ronningen, who's live in Minneapolis. And let's see. Here we go. We've got to show this one because you're getting a big shout out on your new glasses there, LeBrent.
Oh, thank you, Travis. Thank you. I should have got these glasses earlier. I've heard a lot of good things about these glasses, so I'm gonna have to keep these.
Travis also wanted to let you know this was a great topic, and really thank you so much for sharing this. And I love this one. Preach it, LeBrent. There's a lot of history and psychology that white folks aren't aware of and or don't understand because we don't live it.
Well, thank you, Chrissy. What I try to, what my goal is whenever I talk about these, is Coach Les knows this wasn't something I was jumping up and down to do. I've done a lot of study on this. What I would say is that I think what we do is that instead of learning, we get triggered, right? We hear certain things, we get triggered, we shut down. And because we're so concerned about being called names and things of that nature, instead of getting to know people and understanding history. So I don't have a stone to throw at anybody. I don't want anyone to leave here feeling condemned. First of all, I don't believe condemnation or guilt or shame actually helps anyone. It's not a healthy thing. If you follow under guilt and shame, you actually will do worse behavior because you feel like that's part of who you are. I just want all of us to be able to come together and care empathically about one another and listen to one another. And I think we can do a lot better together.
And, you know, inside of that, Travis says, I love it. He cares enough to listen, right? That's the first, I think, place that we're looking for, is to have people at least stop and listen to hear what they might find out. I mean, that's what I got from speaking with you, LeBrent, and I really appreciate the time that we got to spend. Christy once again said, amen. We need more empathy in the world.
Yes.
Dawn Bennett, who just says hi from Red Wing, and she came and jumped in and said, this is such a valuable topic right now. I like that. Righty now. Empathy is needed so much. Everyone is doing the best they can with the information they have in their own backgrounds. And I think this is, you know, when you and I spoke, LeBrent, some of this stuff I just had no idea about. Right? I mean, my history, yes, I took history in high school and I was here with that history, but I didn't hear some of that stuff in the history.
Well, and again, I think one of the issues is that we feel like history can hurt us. It cannot hurt you. It can only encourage you, even if it's something bad, right? One of the reasons you actually taught me something about how history is actually in our DNA, right? I know physically it's in our DNA because that's why you go to the doctor and they say, hey, do you have a history of heart disease in your family? Well, I know that historically, but you had taught me that history is actually in our psychological DNA, which was kind of astonishing to me as well. Now, when you combine the physical and the psychological history, and you understand what happens throughout, 300-400 years, it would make sense why things are still reverberating now. And so from what I learned from you and knowing what I knew, it's so important to us that to before we just jump and be accusing and be mad at people, I think we should stop and listen and say, man, what caused people to be there? Again, that doesn't diminish people's consequences, because you can feel bad and still have to pay the consequences for your actions. So I think everyone has to be submitted to consequences, but I think it does make a difference on how we get there.
And I think one of the things that, I picked up, because I picked up several points and I still have the Post-it sitting on my desk that I kept, and I wrote the little 5 points on. Yeah. That you mentioned. And, I think that the thing that I learned, right, because, in my naivety, I spoke to you and said, well, look, I felt when I moved to this country, I felt completely like I was, being discriminated against because of my accent, especially in 7th grade, and that as a youth. One of the things, though, that you mentioned that I didn't even think about was when I go to the mall and I don't open my mouth, I fit in. I just blend in with the scenic surroundings of all the white people, right? Mm-hmm. But as a Black person, there's no turning off your color.
No.
And when you shared that, it was completely a new opening for me to understand that, right? You walking down the street in my neighborhood, I walk down the street, even though I'm not from here or wasn't from here, people would just see a white kid walking down the street. But when you walk, you stand out, right? I don't stand out till I open my mouth. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I mean, I went to a private school in Minnesota in Columbia Heights from, kindergarten, 5 years old. So this is the mid 70s. And it was the racial discrimination as a child, because I was one of the only African Americans in the school, was so bad that they had to protect me walking to and from the school, because adults and other older people would do and say stuff to me just because I was Black. It wasn't like I could hide it. Now, even when we were talking, despite that, going through that, what I also said is that I don't minimize your pain. Being different is hard. I see it in my own kids. So what happens is when people hear things and say, you could have been defensive, you don't know how hard it was. And you did say that to me, like how hard it was, but your pain is real. I'm not diminishing your pain. I think what happens is I don't have to minimize your pain to express to you what my pain is. And I think sometimes when we hear things, people go immediately to, you're minimizing my hurt, you're minimizing my pain. I'm like, we don't have to minimize anyone's pain. We should just try to do our best to eliminate everyone's pain if we can. And so I think that's where we stem from. It's not like your experience wasn't real. It's just that, again, as I explained before, I couldn't remove mine. And I think that's what makes our effect of racism in this country so powerful.
So we've got a couple of questions that have kind of started to pop up. First of all, yes, LeBrent, because of the triggers, sometimes we're unsure how to help our friends because we aren't sure what to say.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. And thank you she posted something really lovely. So thank you, Teresa. What I would say is, we have to walk in our humanity. What that means is being transparent with people and say, I'm here for you. You don't have to always know what to say. When someone, when my mom passed some years ago, people are always trying to figure out words to say. But some of the most powerful things were, just be here with me. Let me vent. Let me go through things. Sometimes just listening. Oftentimes we feel like we have to have magical answers, but we don't. We just have to be present. We have to just be here. You don't have to understand. I remember years ago, maybe this sounds naive, but I was talking to a friend of mine at work, and she was sharing to me, she's short, pretty woman, and she was sharing to me like stuff, sexual harassment she had been through, going to bars or clubs or anything. And I'll be honest with you, I'm in my 40s. I was oblivious to it. I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you serious? Is this a real thing? This is a real conversation. I was like, no, I've never seen that happen before. But it dawned on me, just because I had not seen it didn't make her experience less real.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think what happened with the George Floyd situation specifically in Minnesota is that, and around the world, people are like, that really happens? Like, well, yeah, we've been saying it, but you just saw it on film. And I think we got to move to a point where we have to see it to believe it, that if we say it enough, it happens. Just like I had to believe my friend, she got harassed at work in different places. And I'm like, who would touch you without your permission? And who would, because I'm thinking through my lens, not knowing there's a lot of guys out there that are doing things they're not supposed to be doing. And so her experience is real, not just because I've seen it, but because it is. And I think we have to move to the fact of I have to see it and touch it and understand it before it's real. So.
Yeah. So Dawn says, I could talk for hours about inherited trauma and epigenetics.
Yes, it is a deep subject.
And then Travis jumps in and says, I found people are more receptive to listening when in person. Online social media created a lot of division because it feeds you more of what you like as opposed to different thoughts and beliefs. And for me also, I think people got, and I'd love to hear your, when I share this, LeBrent, is for me on social media, people had no impact of the 85 to 95% of the communication that's nonverbal when they say things. So people became irresponsible. Like, I don't care. and they would say things and not think about how it landed when it goes through other people's filters. And I was just amazed at some of the things I would see, and people would get into arguments in chat on Facebook. I'm like, wait a minute. The first thing that was said could have been misinterpreted, and you guys are at war with each other.
Well, you know as well as I do, text messaging or emails are the lowest form of communication because it does not have vocal in context. It does not have facial expressions. And you're right, misinterpretation runs rampant. So if you add the misinterpretation fueled by not only the misinterpretation, but then this detachment because you're not even a real person. It's a disassociation because I'm talking to Facebook 123 guy. I'm not talking to a real human being with real emotions. And I think when we text or we put something in there, we have to always remember these are real people, even if they're bots or something. This could be associated to real people with real problems and real lives. And we have to be more mindful of the stuff we say, to be kind.
Yeah. And I think this is a really good one here, LeBrent. What ways do you use or recommend to use when individuals are triggered? How do you encourage them to pause to understand and hear the other person instead of being reactive?
Man, Don, that's an incredible question. I would tell you as a person who in times past have been easily triggered, there are things I had to do specifically to do this. So that is a phenomenal question because we all have triggers, and the triggers come from our pain points as children, and then they linger on as adults. What I suggest that when someone comes at us and it triggers us because they say we have this and you don't understand my life, the first thing we have to do is somewhat detach ourselves from the comments. One, does that person even know me? Do they even understand me? Why do I care if a person on Facebook that doesn't even know me or have a relationship with me say something about me? So one, I have to take away the sting by giving it context. So give whatever the person said context. Then looking at maybe they do know me, but they're in really a lot of pain. You know, we've all said things in pain that we wish we could take back. I'm sure every person in the world has that experience. Well, let's give people a little grace that we want as well. So if we can detach ourselves from the situation, one, do they even know me? Two, what is their current situation? Maybe they're in a lot of pain and grief right now that I can take away from. And so when we learn not to internalize these conversations, to detach and not internalize, it makes it easier for us to listen so we can be effective in helping others. But we have to detach from it, understand this person may not even know me, and two, they might be in a lot of pain. And therefore, let's give them some grace.
With your permission, I'd love to throw your, not throw, but put your email up on the screen as well, LeBrent.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And just to finish up a couple things here, Teresa Schmidtman said, yes, that's what I was trying to ask. Thank you, Don Bennett. And Don said, Christy jumped in again and said, what a great point that some folks have difficulty believing in things that they don't experience, which is really true. Of course, Travis jumps in and says, so wise as well. And somebody from the Accelerated Global Connection says, I've gotten to the point that trying to discuss things on social media really just seems like a waste of time. In person, I'm all for it, but social, just not productive.
I would like to add, and I think those are good points. One of the things I would often add to people when I talk about coaching people to minimize their stress, one of the things I would often encourage people to do, one of the bad habits that most people do as soon as they wake up, they pick up their phone. They immediately start looking at social media. They start doing things and getting these things in their brains. I would encourage you not to do that. You need a time where you're filling your brain with thoughts and mindsets of your choosing and not picking up information. Remember, if you're picking up the first thing in the morning, you're ingesting other people's thoughts for you instead of ingesting the thoughts you have for yourself. So the first thing I would do is get some healthy boundaries with social media so that is not the first thing you see in the morning. I don't even read text first thing in the morning. I make sure I'm very deliberate. It's an hour before I will read any text or look at anything social media because I think the most important thing you can do as a human being is protect your peace and protect your mind. Because if you can't protect your mind and your peace, you're easily triggered, you're easily set off, and you're easily sent in the wrong direction. Protect your peace, and I think a lot of things will flow out of that.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that with my clients that are dealing with some social media stuff from too much screen time. One of the things that I recommend they do is put a table somewhere near the front door and put all the charging stations and make sure it's a beautiful place to put all their equipment. And when they come home from school, and when the parents come home from work, lead by example, right? Everything goes onto that table and they can't touch it until after dinner if they need it for an hour, but then it goes right back there. And people, the answers I get from some of, but I use my phone as an alarm clock. I said, well, it's time to get an alarm clock that is not your phone.
Absolutely.
And it's magical to see and hear 1 or 2 weeks in, what was dinner like? Well, we actually spoke to each other.
It is what it also does is it really emphasizes our addiction. This dopamine hits we're getting from these likes is really changing us in a real powerful way. And I think in order for us not to be so inflamed, we can't take all these dopamine hits from likes and dislikes and this, that, and the other. We have to learn how to start getting ourselves calibrated before. And I think it makes us more secure human beings. And secure human beings can have better conversations. They're more wise, they're more intuitive, and they're more educated. Read a book. I don't like talking to people about certain situations if they've never read a book outside of their own experience. Like, read a book of something that's going to give you a little more information instead of just reading social media. Google has really messed us up in some ways. It doesn't cause people to do any real research. It's like when people say, I've researched, yeah, that means you Googled. That's not real research.
And I think the when you're talking about the dopamine hits as well, when you think about some of the nuances that are happening, where I watch a friend of mine say something on social media, and then because I don't really have an opinion myself and I haven't done any investigative work, I glob onto theirs for lack of I'll just take their opinion, thinking that they may have done research on it. And I think this is the massive pitfall, this is the Achilles heel of social media, is globbing onto something that isn't even yours.
Yes, we regurgitate other people's opinions, make them our own, and then it's like, oh, I didn't realize you just got that opinion out of a shoebox. Like, we really need to vet the things we speak. This is what I mean, protecting your mind, protecting your peace. We got to be careful what we latch on to as human beings, because now we're married to an idea, and then that's how people go down spirals, and they found out the whole thing was a lie. I really think we as a society have to be more mindful of what we're ingesting mentally, because if we're not mindful, it's going to have a really debilitating effect on our children and our children's children.
I think you get a chuckle out of this. This is Dawn. LeBrent, you're speaking my language. Laugh all out. Dopamine.
Yes. Well, dopamine is what motivates us, is what gets us going, and so we have to understand if we're exchanging good dopamine for motivation, to work out, to eat better, to do with your family, and you're exchanging that for likes and dislike, man, it can be an intoxicating drug, and it's really changing our children. And I think we got to do a good job of kind of putting all those things together.
And my very good friend, who's my accountability partner every morning at 6 o'clock, just jumped on here and said, "Amen."
Well, I'm hopeful, I hope, and I thank you, Travis, and thank you, Coach Les, for allowing us to have this opportunity to discuss this. And again, my heart is that anyone that heard this today leaves empowered. My personal motto is I want people to feel loved, encouraged, and empowered. So I don't believe history has the ability to, especially if it's factual history, has the ability to rob you. It only has the power to empower you. So I just hope everyone leaves here with armed with better information or just clarification so that they can be empowered to deal with people in the future.
LeBrent, thank you. And, I look forward to looking at going through the replay of this video on LinkedIn and the other social media sites and just seeing what other questions pop up. And I appreciate your time and just really thank you. Thanks for accepting my invitation to speak on this topic, because I think it's so important, especially in business today, right? We cannot, as an entrepreneur, for all of the AGC members, we cannot afford to exclude anybody from doing business with us. And when these accidents happen because we're not cognizant of what we're speaking and how it impacts others, I'm really appreciative of the information you gave us today. And I invite people to review it and listen to it a second, maybe even a third time, because the first time it's kind of a shock. The second time you're cleaning out some of the stories you have in your head. And by the time you get to the third time to listen to the video, you can actually have an open mind to hear what you spoke today, LeBrent. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, Les. In closing, I just want to say, as some of you may know, I am a preacher, and so I won't leave here with any preaching. What I will say, there is an interesting story in the Bible about you can't love, and you've heard it many times in different reiterations in different communities, that you have to love your neighbor as you love yourself. There's a key proponent of that is loving yourself. And so wherever you are right now, I want you to love yourself. You can't love someone more than you love you. And I want you to love yourself and show yourself grace and forgiveness. Whatever mistakes you've made in the past, whatever thing you've done, show yourself grace and forgiveness. Because if you can't have grace and forgiveness for yourself, you'll never have grace and forgiveness for other people. And that's going to empower you. Nelson Mandela, when he left prison, after 27 years, he was leaving prison, and he said he hated those jailers. But then once he left, he said, when I get in this card, I'm going to let that go. He said, because he understood that his hatred would not help him. It would only hurt him, because resentment is like drinking poison, expecting your enemy to die. So I want people to leave here feeling empowered and feel like, I don't want to drink that poison of resentment.
Really, thank you once again, LeBrent. And I look forward to many more times of communicating and getting to know a little bit more about you. And don't forget, everybody that's listening, follow LeBrent Speed, find him on Facebook, find him on LinkedIn, and get ready. He has a new event space that's opening up in South Minneapolis, the southern part of Minneapolis at the Twin Cities in Edina. And really, my wish for you is the greatest of success for you and your wife in that new space.
Thank you, Coach Les. Thank you. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Take care.
Right.
And with that, everybody, we'll get back into, there we go. Technology. So much fun. All right. You can definitely visit and join agc.com excuse me, for our upcoming events. We have weekly talks airing live weekly during the morning, midday, and evening across the country. I want to take a moment now and thank you to Gandhi Wong and Global IT for supporting our website and making it capable for our members to create profiles, connect, and direct message amongst themselves on our website at joinagc.com. If you are looking for a community to plug into that values motivation, education, relationships, referrals, and more closed business. Join AGC by going to joinagc.com and becoming a member for only $1 per day. And now I want to say thank you very much. Really appreciate you and look forward to the next time.
Yeah.